To everyone. Welcome again to the Living Martial Arts podcast with me, the Dark Master. And once again, we have Mr. Ciaran McDonald for part two. We had part one, really interesting interview, gave us some insights into his martial arts journey. And hopefully we'll have a few more insights into his martial arts world now. So how are you again, Mr. McDonald? How are you doing?
Brilliant, sir. Brilliant.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's good. All is good as well.
Good, and it's nice to see the sun is shining, which is quite appreciated. After this interview, I'm going to go out for my daily walk. I do try and get out for a walk most days, and particularly when it's sunny. I try and take my top off and get a bit of vitamin D, and hopefully to boost my immune system. So yeah.
Well, you know where that sun is, don't you?
Sorry, say again.
You know where that sun is? That's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I'm hoping so. I've been waiting to see it for a long time. So hopefully this is it. Well, we'll carry on with part two of the interview and finding out a little bit about you. On previous podcasts, I've mentioned to some of the guests that I've been doing some meditation and some breath work. And I found it really beneficial. And I don't know whether this is more of an age thing. Now that I've got fighting out of my system, although I still like to spar and fight, but I'm not very good at it these days. So meditation and breath work takes up a little bit of my day. I try and do some meditation at least once a day. I try and do some breath work twice a day, once in the morning, very early, and once late at night, just before I go to bed. I also do that along with some red light therapy. That's a story for another day. But I found it really beneficial. It's certainly not natural to my personality, sitting in one place and doing nothing and trying to just concentrate on my breath. So I have explored different types of breath work. I've tried some Buteyko breath work. I'm currently doing Wim Hof. I'm also looking at some yogic breath work as well at the moment. But what about yourself? Do you do any meditation or breath work?
No, quite frankly, no. My wife, I had a couple of lessons of Qigong a few years ago, and at the end of a class, every now and again, I do hyper-oxygenate the body, but
yes,
not really very much. No, I do stretching every morning, and that is that takes a good 45 minutes every morning.
Sure. Yeah.
If I'm not training, that is, and then I do the stretching afterwards. But I always incorporate 45 minutes worth of stretching in. You know, consequently, I'm always a couple of inches off the full side splits or the front splits. I've been that way for 20 odd years. Don't think I'm going to get those last couple of inches, but you know, I'm nearly 50, so you know, being flexible at the age of 50 has other benefits other than being able to do the splits, doesn't it? It means you can move around without pulling muscles in your back and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it is handy. I mean, I think, and I've said before that meditation can take many different forms. It depends on, you know, the activity involved. I can find, you know, playing guitar, playing harmonica, quite a meditative process. And afterwards, you know, I can get up and feel quite energized and think, wow, you know, I feel good. Or as I mentioned just now, going out for a walk in the sun and doing what I would call a moving meditation. Not thinking about work or thinking about anything else, but I like looking at the change in the flowers and the trees through the seasons. So I can find that quite a meditative process as well. But certainly the breath work has been quite a change. It's something that, even though we do it in our martial arts, you know, we practice breathing as we're doing particular movements. Just concentrating just on breathing alone has been quite a new dimension for me. And
my wife's a big fan of it, actually. She's as you know, my wife is her parents are both Indian, and consequently she's inherited a love of yoga from them, and she's bang into meditation as well. So she's always telling me, like, you know, in martial arts we're very, very fond of duality, like white, black, off, on, good, bad, up, down, yin yang or yang. And she's saying to me, it's all aggression, 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 all the time. Although, my martial arts is not necessarily aggressive. It is in that kind. I've got my foot in that camp most of the time. And she's saying to me, yeah, you really need to balance that with meditation. And as I get older, I'm thinking, she probably is right, because I do find it hard to unwind quite a lot of the time.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think she's bang on. For most of my life, I've been a very on the go person all the time, and I certainly needed that balance in my life. And you could argue that maybe it's come a bit late to me, but I don't think it has. I am enjoying the benefits of it, and I think I'm now a lot better for it. So I do intend to carry it on. I intend to carry on long term and keep the breathing, keep the meditation going. Maybe just explore some different types of meditation and breathing as well, and just see how it makes me feel. But yeah. Well, what about what type of things do you do when you're not doing martial arts? I know we spoke about this in the first podcast, that actually, well, it's fitting your life into your martial arts. But what takes you out of that martial arts mode? Apart from your kids and your family, which obviously it does. What else?
Well, the kids and the family have really changed the shape of everything I do. So in the past, to unwind, I used to do gardening. When I was living in the city, obviously I had different ways of unwinding there. But when my wife and I moved out to the countryside about 16, 17 years ago, I took up gardening. So I used to garden, and our garden was immaculate. I was very proud of it. We had a load of fresh produce that we would eat all the time from it. We were actually getting to a stage where we were going to get livestock and go pretty much self-sufficient. But the children came along. And so now I live in a house of 20-foot weeds and thistles, and I kind of usher guests past the garden into the house, sort of thing, prior to COVID. But so your priorities shift a lot. I mean, I used to enjoy reading a lot. I've got a bit of wide library of books, and in the past I would read an awful lot of martial arts and study languages and things like that. But when the kids come along, you're snatching moments of relaxation on your own. So consequently, I haven't read a book in a long time. Actually sat down, read it for enjoyment. I've done it, studied stuff, but I haven't sat down and read for enjoyment quite a long time. It's very difficult to do. So now, very much like yourself, if I get a good sunny day like this and I don't have anything on, I do like to pick the guitar up and sit around in the sun, plucking away at that, and scaring the birds away with a bit of singing. And if I can, a cup of coffee and a book is nice to do as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you know what? I'm very much the same. I used to read physical books quite a lot. I love factual things, not necessarily fiction, but I like non-fiction stuff. I like to read about facts and, for want of a better word, real things. But what I tend to do now is for years I've been listening to audiobooks, and I really, really like that. And I can switch off if I'm going to bed early, switch the lights off, put my audiobook in, put my headphones on, audiobook on, and listen. And I find that really, really great. So I can still get that experience of listening to facts and taking things in and interesting things in, but I don't have to physically have the book. I still think a physical book is great, by the way. I really do. And I don't think you can beat it, but I think you have to sort of try and design your lifestyle, to make it convenient. And audiobooks are very, very convenient. And also I can go out and walk and put an audiobook on as well. I don't know if you've ever tried audiobooks.
I do them all the time. I'm pretty much addicted to spoken word these days. I've got a massive library of albums and music, and I used to be a DJ, so I used to do that a lot when I was younger as relaxation. Get the turntables out, blast out some bass heavy music, But yeah, but now I listen to the Radio 4 a lot.
Oh, that is an age thing.
I know.
See, I'm only on Radio 2.
Oh, you'll get there. You'll get there. I'm addicted to Woman's Hour.
I'm only on Radio 2, so you know, apart from when my kids get in the car, I say, Dad, what is this? The same thing that I used to say to my dad when I used to get in the car. What is this?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that you know, even digital. I mean, I've actually said to myself that I can't buy any more books. When I moved recently, my loft was absolutely packed with books. I've still got a lot of books, but I had to get rid of a lot as well. It's one of those things where, so I'll keep that book because I might read it again. And there's no chance of me actually reading some particular books again. So in the end, I thought, right, I need to get rid of them, and I had boxes and boxes. So it was actually quite nice. Actually, it was quite a calming process in the end. Once I came back to the house, I thought, well, actually, that's all gone now, and these are the books that I really want to keep. But it was a difficult process. But I do enjoy reading books. And
well, you know, that's interesting. Like the attachment to physical objects is very interesting. My wife is very attached to everything. She's one of those lovely people that hoard stuff and can't throw anything away. And I used to be, I never had, you know, I come from a relatively poor background, so I never had huge amounts of physical possessions or personal possessions. But what I did have, I was very attached to. Like, they were my things. And when I got older and I had more disposable income, I bought more stuff, you know, like everybody else in society, thinking that the more stuff I own, the happier I would be. And when my wife and I got married in 2006, we took a year off and we traveled around the world. So we took everything that we owned and we put it up in the loft, locked it, and then we rented out our house to some people. And so you didn't have anything, you were just living out of a backpack for a year. And basically, when I got back, we couldn't get back into the house because we'd rented it out to somebody else, and the contract was for another 3 or 4 months when we came back. So we didn't have any choice but to move in with my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, in Warwick, which is a completely different place. So I went up there, studied Taekwondo up there, under, I think it was the GTUK, and I lived in her flat, but I couldn't get hold of my possessions still, my personal possessions, which were up in the loft.
Right.
And so I lived there without any physical possessions, really. And when I moved back to my house at the end of it, in almost 2 years later, I left everything up in the loft. I never took it all down.
Yeah.
I was cured, you know, from my obsession of having stuff and accumulating stuff. Don't get me wrong, I still used to raid the old charity shop, but I didn't feel any attachment to physical possessions anymore, and I don't at all either. So although I have loads of books and loads of albums and stereo and guitars and stuff like that, I don't feel any physical attachment to any of it. I could quite easily leave it and go somewhere else.
Well, it's a nice place to be, and I can concur with that. I had a very similar experience last year when I moved. I moved from a house with you know, three bedrooms, albeit one of them a very small box room, where I was living there on my own. Had lots of stuff, and I hired a skip, actually, a large skip outside my house, and I thought, well, I'll put some stuff in there. I'll never fill it. I did. Not only did I fill it, I overfilled it. But it was great when the lorry came along to take it all away and you know, do what they do with it. It was great. And now I live a lot smaller. I live in a park home, and there isn't any room for stuff. So that's great. I just try and live with the things that I need, and I think that's you know, that's been really good for me. Like everybody, you get into this thing where you feel you need this and you need that to live with, and then you realize, actually, I don't really need that much to live with. You know, as long as I've got you know, a bed or somewhere, not even a bed. I did actually live without a bed for some time. I actually lived, strangely enough, without a cooker for 6 months at one time. I just used a little gas stove, and it was fine. I got on really well. It was actually quite nice to know that I could actually survive.
Yeah, I did that. I did that for 6 months as well. I lived with a microwave. I was looking after a property for the Crown Property Services in London. It was an old abandoned pub. I think it's called a Trafalgar. No, it wasn't called a Trafalgar. That's a good pub. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, the landlord got into some argument with the local villains, and one of them came in and chopped his fingers off on the bar with a machete.
Ow.
And then they shut the pub. So yeah, they got us in as a security outfit to just look after the building. So I was in there looking after the building during the middle of winter, and it was freezing. And although we had electricity, we didn't have any gas. And so all I had was a microwave, which had a big crack down it. And so you were never altogether certain whether you were getting microwaved yourself. So we used to put the food in the oven, close the microwave, and then run out the room quickly, wait for the ping and come back in. But yeah, you learn some interesting ways of making food when you've got limited ways of cooking, don't you?
Well, you do, yeah. I actually don't even have a microwave. I don't use one. I have just a normal cooker that I do things on, and so I tend not to heat anything up on microwaves. And I mean, I'm lucky in a way because I can just cook for myself and so on. When the kids come round, they can go, "Oh, Dad, where's your microwave?" I said, "Yeah, there was actually a life before microwaves, you know." I lived that quite well. But talking about microwaves, what about food and sort of diet regimes? Not in the diet in dieting in the sense, but when I say diet, about what you eat. Now, I'm quite conscious about what I eat. That's not to say I don't eat any rubbish. My Achilles heel tends to be potato crisps, unfortunately, and I have to stay away from those as much as possible. You know, if I go to a party and I have one crisp, then it's deadly. But as you know, I mean, I've come up to do a grading for you before, and you said, "Oh, what do you want to eat?" And I said, "Oh, an avocado." He said, "Yeah, what else?" I said, "Well, no, just an avocado and green tea." So I do try and eat very, very clean. I've also realised that there isn't one diet that fits all. I think you have to listen to your body and see what your body likes. And see what your body doesn't like, and I think we've sort of lost that in the West a little bit. We tend to get stomach discomfort or whatever, and then we say, "Oh, I wonder what that is," but we don't really think about the food that we ate 2 hours before, and we don't connect the two. We don't connect the dots. So anyway, do you have any particular sort of diet or food regimes that you stick to?
I do. Do you know, you talking about people having painful stomachs and then continue eating the same thing. You should see my dad. You should see what he eats. He's a wonder of modern science. He's had like 3 or 4 heart attacks, and he's had stints put in here and there. And his doctors give him advice on what he should eat, and he never listens. He just only listens to what he wants to hear. So they'll give him a vast array of foods that he should eat, and he'll say, "Can I have some chocolate?" And they'll say, "Well, you know, you shouldn't really eat chocolate, but if a little bit of chocolate, like every now and again, won't kill you." And then he'll only hear, "Yes, you can eat chocolate." So if he puts up for the chocolate. So he's always moaned about having a bad stomach, but if you look in his fridge, it's full of pork pies, tomatoes, Diet Coke, and white bread. That's it.
I don't think he's alone. I have to say, I think there's a lot of people out there who are only listening to the who have selective hearing regarding food. So, but it's tough. I mean, I think it's a lot harder now than when I was. I'm sounding ancient. I don't want to sound ancient, but you know, you never had a sort of a McDonald's or a KFC around every corner. A lot of the out of town shopping places that you go to always have the same sort of outlets, you know, KFC, McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, blah, blah, blah. And it's very, very easy to get into that. And even I, at times, I thought, well, I'm really hungry, but there's no choice. So I'm going to have to go into that place and get something. So, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think that when I was training, doing a lot of physical training, I could get away with eating anything, really. And you know, myself and a Mastro, you know, we used to stop at our local burger place and get burger and chips before the training session, and then do the same afterwards, you know, and still lose weight. But you know, I'm a lot more conscious now.
But also, like, food science has changed. People's understanding of nutrition has changed over the years. So people have always deferred to the wiser advice of so-called experts. But the experts change what they consider to be sage wisdom every, God knows, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. A good example of that is now that everybody's on this high-fat protein diets and cutting out carbs. And now we know, and I personally used to be a big binger of pasta all the time, thinking that it was the training food, the wonder food for training, right?
Yeah.
And then I switched to whole wheat pasta because that was going to be the fix-all. But we now know that spiking your eating huge amounts of carbohydrates spikes your
Insulin.
hypoglycemic index. Right? And so you go through the roof in energy levels, and then you crash. So you peak and trough a lot more.
Yeah.
And also, if you're not burning the energy off, you immediately turn it into glycogen, which you store around the body in adipose tissue, in your fatty tissues. So if you're men, you'll store it on your belly. If you're women, you store it on your bottom. And so I listened to this interview with this Australian nutritionist, and he was very apologetic. He was pushing the high-fat, high-protein diet, and he was very apologetic of his time as a high-level sports nutritionist. Because he was working with Olympic athletes and people of that caliber. And his thinking was, by pushing the high carbohydrate diet onto those people, he had in fact shortened their careers.
Yes, yeah.
Which is crazy, right?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I did some nutrition courses in the 90s, and it was in Hertfordshire, actually, the Academy of Sports Therapy. And the lecturer there was a woman called Anita Bean. And I don't know whether her book is still on Amazon. You can still get it. But she was the nutritionist for the British Olympic team at one of the Olympics. I can't remember which one it was. And I've still got the notes. And on there, it does state 70% of your intake for a day should come from carbohydrates. And that was the norm at that time. People were pushing that for athletes, 70% carbs. It was quite and the rest was split between protein and fat. And one thing that I did find, for me personally, was that when I was on that regime, about 3 o'clock, when I was thinking, right, I'm going to need to go to my class, I used to get a huge low, massive low. I had to have coffee. I had to have, a Mars bar or whatever, just to get back up again to do my class, and then crash afterwards, as you mentioned. And I think that was the thing, carb loading and loading with pasta the night before a marathon was the thing.
You're working up early diabetes. It basically experiencing symptoms of diabetes, right? By loading up with carbs, body burns them all off.
Sure.
Hypoglycemic level goes crazy, then you crash through the roof, through the floor, and then you spike them again with more carbs, and it's just like a vicious cycle. One of the things, you were asking me earlier about do I have any particular food regimes that I follow. I tend to try and eat healthily, and I supplement my healthy eating with red wine and beer. But one of the things I discovered that is, previously I was a slave to the whole loading of carbs thing. And then I discovered that I didn't have to eat that way any longer. I could eat other stuff. And so consequently, my diet isn't made up of carbs all the time, and I'm not loading up on them any. And then I discovered that could go even further. So that, and everybody does it now. It's like a craze. But I got into intermittent fasting, which means, you obviously know this, but for anybody who doesn't know this, it just means that you don't eat for a longer period of time in between meals.
Yeah.
What I discovered was, and this was only relatively recently, I heard that people like George St. Pierre and other elite athletes, they were doing this all the time. And so I thought, well, if George St. Pierre, being a hero of mine, if he can do it, and fight the UFC on this diet, then I can do it. So basically what you do is you don't eat for a large window of 12 to 16 hours. You can extend it further, but it's usually about 12 to 16 hours.
Yes.
And what that does is it gets your body used to the fact that it can work without loading up on carbs or whatever you're eating in short snatches, and you can burn the food that you do eat more efficiently over a longer period of time. Yeah. And I used to get up in the morning. I had like, whenever I had a class, whenever I train, usually on a Saturday morning, we had a class at 9 o'clock in the morning in Newbury when I was doing BJJ there at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I had to get up an hour earlier than that because I had to eat. I had to have a small cup of coffee and something substantial in my stomach just so I had a little bit of energy, and I didn't want to load up on food so that it would be in my belly when I was rolling around with people. So I had to get up earlier than I needed to. And what I discovered was if I don't actually eat at all in the mornings, I end up with more energy rather than less energy. And I can then train for a couple of hours. I come home, stretch for another 45 minutes. I still don't need to eat until until about 12, 1 or whatever. And my body gets used to that. And there's no discernible dip in energy at all. You can train just as hard and just as long. It's crazy.
Well, I would agree with that. Yeah, well, I would agree with that. I mean, I do that now. I mean, intermittent fasting, or whether you call it time restricted eating. I know some people call it that, TRE. I ate yesterday my last bit of food, which wasn't a meal actually. It was a very, very small portion of food. It was at 6:30. I haven't eaten at all today. We're 12:30 now in the just 12:30 in the afternoon. So when I finish this interview, I'll probably make myself something to eat. So that's a period there of 18. It'll probably be 19 hours since my last meal. I've had green tea and water and that type of thing. So no, I would definitely agree with that. It certainly made a massive difference to me. And I don't get that I have to eat now feeling where I used to get. If I didn't eat in 5 minutes, the world was going to cave in.
Exactly. You don't get hungry either. That's another thing.
Yes, yeah, hungry. Yeah, definitely.
When you're a slave to 3 meal times, squeezing 3 meal times in a day, when you're a slave to that, you're hungry all the time.
Yeah, well, maximum I have maximum of 2 meals, sometimes 1 meal a day, but never 3 now. It's always 1 or 2. So I feel quite happy with that, and my body tends to work quite efficiently. So that's good. So finally, I just wanted to ask about grade, your feelings on whether you feel grade matters. Now, don't get me wrong. It does matter, otherwise we wouldn't strive to be the next grade up. But I think once you get up a few grades, they tend to matter less. When I was a white belt and a yellow belt, I wanted to be a black belt, and that was the thing. And then when I got to black belt, I thought, oh yeah, I get my second hand. And then it sort of started to wear off after. So I thought, do I really want to? And so I look at it now and I think it's not so much about grade. For me, it's about you as a person, your attitude, the way you approach your training. And actually, I could survive now on just performing 6 or 7 patterns that I love. I don't need to practice 24. So yeah, just your thoughts on that, really.
Well, grade means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So my take on grade is very different than other people. So it's like when you get a black belt, you say to people that how's black belt going to change you? And the real answer is it doesn't change you very much. It changes the way you're perceived by other people. And grade is very much like that. In the Taekwondo world,
sure.
In a lot of the martial arts world, the little gold bars on your belt are how people view you. And you're rightly or wrongly, you're viewed as the bars are viewed as a measure of the knowledge you've accumulated over those years. And this is going to sound really awful because it's just the way I look at things. My feeling is the more grades you acquire, for me, the more knowledge I need to acquire.
Yeah.
If I'm not acquiring more knowledge, then the grade, I'm not sure what the grades are measuring for me in particular.
Sure. Okay.
So, and consequently, you know, there are a lot of people masquerading at very high grades that can't throw a hook punch.
Yeah.
And you know, my feeling is that we should have like a kind of, I know it's impossible to have like a standard throughout Taekwondo, even though, or any martial art in particular, because all of our different interpretations of what that means to people. But I believe that if you're going to walk around with 6 bars on your belt, you should be able to throw a hook punch.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that, and appreciate your insights into that. Well, we've come to the end of part 2. I hope at some point in the future we'll have a part 3 and speak to you again, find out how you're getting on. Maybe I'd love to come down to a session and perhaps just do a small interview while you're doing your stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we can sort of cover that. But thanks very much for that. I'd like to say to everybody listening, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that at livingmartialarts.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter and get updates as soon as these podcasts come out. If you want to connect with Mr. Ciaran McDonald, then please have a look at the show notes. We'll put his details in there. Connect with him, and you know, perhaps invite him down to your dojo, your dojang, to do a session for you. Thanks very much, Ciaran. Hope to see you soon. Take care and look after yourself, and best wishes to you and your family. Peace and love from the Dark Master. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.